Well, a while since we did not talk. I'm Asel, guiding the team Vegalian and Nazcan, greetings. Participants Asel greetings. How are you? Participant we're good. And thou? Yes, well, many things. Well, perhaps you have questions. If you have, the space is open. Feel free to question indiscriminately. Participant we are living bellicose moments that were expected for a long time. They could be heard talking in these bellicose times. My question is, there was a time that was not bellicose, you have lived? Participant now might be a little more belligerent yet, because it is spread all over the world, not just here. My question is this: is it the beginning of this planetary transition? It has something to do with this planetary transition, this bellicose time, overly pugnacious we are living right now? The issue of militancy is a matter of perspective. You may have that impression because you are inserted in a bellicose context. But from my point of view, at least, I do not see this intensity of bellicosity. Unlike, perhaps never in history had such peace installed in humanity's surface. Participant really? Yes. How do I explain this? For all this it is perspective. This does not mean that my perspective is more real, or more valid. But the proportion of peace as a state, including mental, being anchored by humanity is proportionally higher than in all other times. This may generate this impression that the bellicosity is more touched on, but this is a result perhaps of the natural contrast that good, that you live stage implies. It is a transition phase. Now, the transition started long ago, it is close to end, it is not starting. Consciousness is free to join the reality that she wants to live. Mindful of this principle, those who are still struggling to maintain control over the experience that takes place on the surface of this planet, writing scenarios that induce them to join the bellicosity as reality for you to live. And of course, your experience of bellicosity is a direct result of their membership or not this proposed to them. You cannot be forced to live who do not want to live, but you can be induced to make that choice. All these games have no direct relation with the transition because they are games that have long been installed on the surface of this planet, but are of relevance at this time because they have the potential to create obstacles to a process that, otherwise, it can be very fluid. Here in this game, handling binds with the transition process. When I speak of manipulation game, let me clarify that I am not talking about any particular game. I'm talking about the game as a whole that takes place on the surface. Participant, this anchoring of peace proportionally greater than the bellicosity confirms that this phase is more fluid, as you say? Yes. We've talked about it at other times. You are here for a very clear purpose, very accurate. This anchoring is the main part of the purpose of their presence on the surface of this world today. Participant, the doors of spiritual ascension, so looking at how we, as humanity, they are open in a special way at this stage of humanity? At the end of transition, at the end of it there is this ascension door where there is the choice to ascend or not of humanity? We could unfold this vision on many levels. Come on. First, what takes place is a collective phenomena, the transition is a planetary phenomena. Before being human, it is planetary. As a result of planetary being is human. When it touches the human level, just metaphorically speaking, that is a matter of choice, because it is your personal choice. And understand that I am dealing with this issue from my perspective, the perspective of a group, a complex of consciousness that you would call alien, who've been through many of these cycles, and we have lived many transitions, and we are currently in a consciousness of position about our past as a social complex, as a family. And that's when I say that this is only metaphorically a matter of personal choice, because personal choice is only the reflection of its position on this that unfolds here, and what unfolds here is different things to different souls who are connected to this planet. Transition is a more impartial than rise term. The concept of ascension is very tinged by personal projections, the personal values of codes. That is a way for you to understand the transition. The transition may be for you, but rise to a more expanded level of consciousness, to a state of wider expression, but this is still limited to the perspective of the person who is the one who does not live expansion, that's who lives a sense of limitation. What is your perspective? How do you stand? This question of how you position relates to how you see yourself. Who you consciously is what you consciously manifest this experience and what you adhere with regard to this selfhood, this sense of being. If you adhere to the person, the whole set of meanings limitation, expansion, imprisonment, release, high and low, passing the concept of ascension, whose word implies elevation, then makes sense and will be the appropriate language code for you describe and interpret transition. If not, the thing can be seen in other ways, many other forms beyond. The expansion opportunity is for all souls and all souls are taking advantage of this opportunity, but then this does not give material for you to determine what is the nature of the experience of each soul. We put this way. The path is not up, in fact the road is not up, this is a mental translation to describe the process. The process is an extension from the inside out and from the outside inward simultaneously. This is not to improve who you are, it is, for humanity's surface, these souls that are on the surface of this planet, to regain awareness of this dynamic and then to his own soul in the soul level. This transition is another of these moments, expansion from inside to outside and from outside to inside simultaneous, that drive the deployment of its potentiality. Of course this has its effects, its phenomenal effects, because it then determines the experiences that the soul lives. This is the direct result of this dynamic. But for the soul what matters is not the reality that will be experienced, or the reality being experienced, but the hidden dynamics that takes place behind the experience. Experience is a theater, the theater is? The experiment is a symbol, which represents. A relevant factor for humanity's surface is that she realizes this, she covers aware of this and she lives it as the output of a state and entry into another, the output of a reality and the entry into another reality, modification of the frame of your experience. But this is the allegorical, metaphorical description. Participant, this issue of expansion from the inside out and outside and simultaneously, you could talk a little about that? The soul is recognizing how the universe and the universe. The soul is recognizing how the universe is an expansion from the inside out. The presence illuminates the space gradually takes and whatever it illuminates is she discovers that she is, that is the soul recognizing how the universe. The expansion from the outside in is recognizing it in the universe, that is the continuous assimilation of the universe for the soul through the mechanisms of experience. Experience is the universal phenomenon of incarnation of cosmic presence in cosmic phenomena. The interpenetrating presence embodies the universe. The universe embodied in the presence. The more you expand, the more the universe expands you. This, well, this is pure abstraction, it does not mean anything. Participant being and being, is not it? Or being and being. They are words that can be applied to it. Participant, we have shown that many consciences of other worlds or universes until directed to humanity, to this planet at this present moment. Could you talk a little about this intention and that purpose? Why? Well, this depends on how you understand what these different consciousnesses, that was the term you used. When you part of the law of identity that you assign to these consciences, the purpose may seem one. When you part of the soul, that this consciousness is the purpose seems to be another. When you start from the perspective of the unit's purpose is one. So it depends on external, internal or hidden, secret approach you do this to understand this relationship, to understand this interaction that happens. Well, the external perspective, the purposes are multiple. Each cosmic family, each race, whatever word you want to use, seems to be performing their own work, own intentions. This is the external perspective. There is diversity, complete diversity, sometimes even lack of agreement. From the internal perspective, all souls manifest aspects that a purpose, and this is the purpose of the soul experience, and there is diversity at this level, but there are confluences these various purposes. From the occult point of view, the secret purpose is one to manifest the life of the cosmos in life. Now, how each consciousness is positioned in this regard depends on the awareness that she has and which of these approaches it adheres. I'll talk about it will be extremely biased, because it will come from my perspective. That may not be the prospect of this consciousness about which I am talking about and therefore cannot be true for her at this time. There is the history, the theater, but to what extent is really useful to rely completely on the information concerning the theater, history? If you stick to the story, it is your reality. If you question the story, well, there are other possibilities. Basically, based on your state of consciousness, we can infer two groups. One group, and this group, well, is as big as it can be, that is fulfilling its purpose through targeted action for yourself, and another large group, which outnumbers and extends largely this first group, working to achieve its purpose by a service to another. But this is a simplified scenario. This is true with regard to the apparent diversity of purposes. Because there is a point where all this is where it all converges. Participant, this convergence, at some point, is the collective here on earth, or is it every presence, every consciousness at the time, on their journey? No, the convergence in respect of which I speak is the convergence of intent on a very deep level of presence. Where every presence is recognized as presence, then all souls ultimately work to achieve the same purpose. One must take into account that, like you are subject to distortion of identification with an identity. This process occurs similarly in the universe and good. Have you seen the size of the universe? Participant, from our perspective, is infinite. Well, brothers, be at peace. Participant's gratitude, brother,